Morning, everybody. Welcome to Buzatori. Today's topic is going to be around interviews. Interviews for technical people. So I was speaking with one of our colleagues over here, and hey, the question that came up is, how do you handle interviews? And I mean, it's a personal thing, but how do you handle interviews? Especially if you're being interviewed by non-technical people. I mean, think about it. From a development standpoint, if I'm in an interview and somebody's asking me, hey, what's your knowledge in SQL Server? What's your knowledge in C#? What's your knowledge with APIs? What's your knowledge in Angular? How do you answer these questions back? Well, that's your question, really. Well, basically for me, it depends how you how you actually set the mood and you set the pace within the interview. So with me, how I do it is, the first thing that I do is I'll ask, hey, who am I speaking with? And it might sound like you're a little bit of a person you might come across as maybe you being, I don't know, confrontational, but it will depend on how you set the mood, like I said. How do you approach your conversations? And it needs to be conversational. Who am I speaking with? If I'm speaking with somebody who's a pro in SQL Server, that's different. Then my knowledge might not be parallel to that. My knowledge might be a little bit lower here, so I might be intermediate. But if I'm speaking to an intermediate person, and my knowledge might be beginner or might be advanced. So you need to kind of gauge who's asking you questions, basically. And that's basically my tip around interviews. And the second tip that I do, like this is something that I don't know where it came from. I think I've seen it somewhere, or it was one of those creative things that you do. I used to be this guy that goes to an interview with a laptop, and I match what I'm doing with the job spec that I've been presented. So if I got a job spec here and I'm being called for an interview, just create a little bit of an application, small. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing in the planet, just the smallest thing in the planet that incorporate all those things that you've been asked on your job spec. And you can present those. That's why it's important to know who's asking you questions, because for starters, you can present your application and say, this is my application. It does A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Then once you are done, then you can now delve deeper into the technical elements and say, okay, this is what makes up this application here. From the back end, I have my SQL Server, and I'm communicating with my SQL Server via Entity Framework. I'm using C#. My front end is Angular or Blazor or React. So whichever front end framework you might be using. So that's basically my two tips, my little tip here around that. So now the last question I'm going to ask you, which is actually the initial question. What are your interview tips? Answer those in the comment section. Thank you very much. Check you out.